there! Thank you for clicking on this video. This Speedpaint was inspired by Drawfee. They're a hilarious YouTube channel and I love them to bits. They do art challenges and I decided I wanted to follow along with one of their challenges. This week's challenge was to draw yourself as a character in your favorite anime. I don't watch a lot of anime myself. I watch a lot of cartoons mostly, but I do love me some BNHA, My Hero Academia, Boku no Hero Academia, whatever. Whatever. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, you'll look it up, please. It's amazing. It's about superpowered teenagers beating the crap out of each other. It makes me very, very pleased. This piece really started off as a challenge because because part of being in BNHA is having a quirk. And for those that don't know, BNHA, in BNHA, quirks are basically superpowers, the superpowered teenager part. And so, to draw myself in the anime, I had to come up with a quirk for myself. And my go-tos are typically, like, camouflage or shape-shifting, but I didn't really like either of those. They felt, I don't know, they just didn't feel right at the time. So I decided I wanted to try something else, and it's because BNHA has some like super weird superpowers, just totally bizarre, and I knew I had to live up to that level of weird with my superpower in the show. And so after talking to some friends, we came up with something really cool, and I like it a lot. I'm really glad. I think it was fun. And so once I had figured that out, I could continue with the piece. And as you can see me struggle here with the sketch, the next problem came in the form of the anatomy. I suck at human anatomy normally, so having to struggle with human anatomy in a style that I'm not used to was also a challenge. There's a bunch of short pauses across the video in a number of places for a number of reasons, and most of the reasons involve me having to look at references in order to make sure whatever I had was good and actually felt on point with the show. Felt like it lined up with the show. I cut out a lot of stuff, a lot of the pauses. Some of them are just too small to be bothered with. I wound up cutting out an entire first attempt at one of the hands, the one that goes across the chest, because I didn't like it. It constantly felt like the character was flipping the bird, even though you could obviously count the fingers and see that that wasn't the case. I wound up just totally redrawing it and then deleting the footage of the first attempt from the video. Overall, this whole thing took me like 7 hours to draw. More than that in recording. It was like 10 hours of footage, I think. I don't actually know how much I cut out. I just know that there was a 2-hour break somewhere in there where I forgot to turn off my recording software. But it took me like 7 hours to do, and 3 of those hours were spent sketching this whole thing out alone. Struggling with anatomy and with hands and all kinds of crazy stuff. So yeah, that was fun. That was fun. It was not fun. I take that back. It was super not fun. But ultimately, I'm kind of mixed with how it came out. The anatomy itself is meh, but it gets covered with clothing. It gets covered with clothing, like, super quickly. So, you don't even see it. And the clothing makes it look super fine, and it looks pretty good actually. So I don't think it came out too bad in the end. Here you can see me. This is technically the second attempt at this hand, but through the magical powers of video editing, you wouldn't have known that if I hadn't told you, but I'm gonna tell you because I'm calling myself out. My cat is currently staring at me and demanding love. But yeah, this is the second attempt at this hand. And I think this one came out pretty good. So I'm not too fussed about this hand. It's all right. And here we can also see me pause multiple times to look at multiple references. What's up next? Oh, snake, yep. So the quirk involves snakes, and specifically telepathically communicating to them. So I knew I had to draw a snake, because I love snakes, and I have a pet snake. And ultimately, this pet snake winds up being modeled, or colored, after my own snake. Her name is Mo, and I love her a lot. Mo is a corn snake, so she'll never get to be this big. The way I draw Mo in this picture is super long and super chunky, and Mo is a corn snake, so she'll never get to be that size, but I can dream all I like. So yeah, I decided to draw Mo as a big chunk of snake hanging out on my shoulders, because that's my dream in life, is to have a big chunky snake sit on my shoulders while I wander about town for no reason whatsoever. The face was actually not a whole lot of issue having to draw it. Big round eyes. It was just a matter again of trying to stay on style. I have a similar problem to Karina where I struggle with mimicking other people's styles. I've made attempts at it before, but nothing to like this degree. But once again, I think it came out alright, so what can I say about that? It's alright. It's not too bad. And here I use a little trick where I have my eye pupils on a different layer, and I just copy and paste and move them. Next was the hair, and I'm really glad they draw Izuku's hair the way that they draw it, because it's super close to just how I normally draw hair. So for a second here, I kind of look like him, but once we get to the clothes, that ends pretty quickly, because here we are, we're at the clothes. This is my green. I always sketch out clothes in green. And as we can see, I cover it in a hood. And that fixes the problem of me looking like Izuku pretty quickly. I hide it under a hood. And here comes my favorite part of the entire outfit. The hoodie drawstrings are little snakes. This is the only feature of my hero costume that I care about, is the fact that the little snakes, they look like snakes. It's my favorite thing that I've ever come up with in like the entire world. And here we go, we got them big chunky My Hero Academia shoes. And draw, okay, yeah, drawing in the shoes, struggling with the pant cuffs. They come out alright. I'm not too fussed about those, they're alright. And then we gotta get in the hoodie. And I wound up drawing this on a different layer and erasing the bit so that I can make sure that my lines were in the right spot. And now I'm going over Mo to draw in the fabric and how it would interact with her, because that's how things do. And I contemplate canvas sizes for a second here, and ultimately wind up going with the smaller one because I don't want to be struggling during the lining part, which is coming up shortly. Give it a second. Okay, a couple seconds more. Gotta add some more sleeve. Oh, and here we go. Lowering the opacity so that I can still see the sketch, and we start off with the lines. And oh boy. Anime lines, like for any anime whatsoever, are totally different from what I normally do. I have pretty thick, and even here I think these lines are too thick for a traditionally anime style, or specifically for BNHA. But my lines are typically thicker than this. And I have my correction set to as high as it'll go, and I suffer for a long time. But this was a different kind of suffering because I didn't have my correction set very high, and I had to still go around and make sure all the lines were smooth, it was a lot of pain. My hand hurt so much after this, but it comes out not too bad. So I think it was worth it in the end. And then here we have me struggling with those like typical anime texture lines, and more of them show up in a second, and I don't actually know how you're supposed to use those. So I think I use far too many of them far too often. Gotta get Mo's big. Look, I love Mo so much. Look at her little face. Oh my goodness. It's so cute. I love my little snake baby. And she'll never get this chunky or big, but I can dream she can be this chunky and big in my heart. Oh, and there's the texture lines that I use far too many of. To be honest, if I had to do a style, if I had to do the BNHA style again, I would definitely use less of them. And I would also make the outline thicker, because that's something that I totally forgot to do when I lined this. Was I had plans and everything to make the outline of this a little bit thicker, and then I just totally forgot to do that. Just totally, yep, there's a lot of them. There's far too many of them. Well, whatever, it's fine. They get soaked up in the colors a lot, so you can see that there's far too many of them right now, but they make less of an impact in the finished piece. Shoelaces are a pain to figure out how they work, but here we go. There they are. Big chunky shoes. Big chunky shoes. We're almost done with the lines. This leg was pain, but it came out okay, which is all that we care about. That's all that's important, is it came out okay. Who cares the emotional pain and suffering that went into this piece? Whew. It was a struggle. It was a struggle. And ultimately I have to wind up coming back to the lines because I forgot some, like, well, not here, but later when I start doing colors. And oh look, start doing colors, and I do a thing like Karina where I create a color base for all of my layers, my color layers to clip to. And there's that base there, and I understand what Karina says about red being easy, because if you're going black lining the first, oh, and there's Mo, there's the actual Mo, there's legit Mo. Red is just, if you're lining in black, then the closest normal color is just red, because that's what art programs default to, and I don't know why they do that, but they do that. And for colors, you saw the green flash there for a second, but I wanted to do a green hoodie because I always do green hoodies for any character, for most characters, because I have a thing with green hoodies. If you're on the Spider-Verse server, you'll know that I have a thing with green hoodies. But I had to match Mo, and I wasn't going to not color my snake friend like Mo, and green just felt like it clashed with her too much, or it was like gonna be Christmassy it was gonna be Christmassy, contrasty, and whatever. And no, look, here's me fixing my mistake where I forgot some lines. So I decided to go with a palette that I usually default to, which is a dark burgundy red and a medium dark orange, and then a lighter bright yellow orange, and then a pastel yellow, and I added some in-between colors for them, and I started laying on patterns, and here's my first attempt at belly scales, and it looks bad, so I try something else, and I like this better. I like this better, and then we get to Mo, or not Mo. I added some colors to Mo's palette, and then I started coloring in the pants. And these pants gave me more problems than they should have. The first thing I try, I don't wind up keeping. Yeah, I don't keep this. They didn't feel like you would see them in BNHA. And they felt wrong. I didn't like it. So later, I wind up changing it and making it something different, but it takes me a while to get there, so we're just gonna see me get rid of that and then come back to it later. After I struggle with other things like the face mask, and apparently I work more on the pants a little bit. Look at that. I forgot that happened. And I'm working on shoes now. I'm procrastinating having to fix the pants, so I'm working on other things. like the t-shirt underneath my hoodie. And a comment about this outfit is that it would probably be really terrible for hero work. Got some fancy eye markings, like a snake. Ooh, and now I'm actually coloring mauve. Yeah, this outfit would probably be really terrible to actually do hero work in, because it doesn't have like any practicality. It's literally just a hoodie and sweatpants and a t-shirt and some tennis shoes. And my quirk as well wouldn't be super great for hero work. But I'm gonna be support. I'll just support. I'll be in the background and help out. Something like that. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. And you probably wouldn't see that kind of speckly thing in BNHA either, but Mo's belly transitions from white to cream, and I had to figure out some way to put it in, so I figured we'll just put in a little bit. Just a little bit. It's fine. And here we go. Finally found out what I want to do with those pants. So that's nice. But I wind up moving, the bottom part down a bit more. There we go. See? And look at that. Pants are figured out. And now we're on to shading. And the shading was a challenge in and of itself because it's cell shading. And if you've seen most of my art, you will know I have cell shaded like twice in my artistic career. And I changed the color because the original color I picked was too orange. I've cell shaded like twice in my art career. Most of the time I do soft shading, which is what I'm more comfortable with. But I have to emulate a style of it. I have to emulate an anime style, and that involves cell shading. And oh boy, it's an adventure. It's an adventure and a half for me figuring out all of this. I didn't do like true cell shading where I picked colors and then picked more colors and cell shaded like right onto the colors, because I was like, no, screw that. That sounds like suffering and a lot of work, and there's a lot of patterns on this, and I wasn't going to do that for every single pattern and every single color. So I broke out a multiply layer. Because multiply layers on my friends, and we gotta get in that second super dark layer of shading. And we're adding some more colors because, oh, look, in a second, and we're in a different program. This is Psy 2 versus which I had previously been in Metabang. We're in Psy because I'm adding some slight gradiating color variations to the cell shading, and Metabang doesn't like it when I blend stuff. So we're in Psy, but we're not in Psy for very long because I only needed it to change up the cell shading colors, which is sad because normally I would do like a whole thing with Psy and doing some shading, but I don't get to. And now we're back in Metabang, and I'm adding some gradient overlays, just a couple of them, just a few, and I decided that, I'm gonna write out some information about my BNHA Sona, as I've started to call this. Yeah. And ultimately I think the shading came out pretty well for a style that I am, once again, really terrible at. Ultimately, I think this came out closer to the promotional poster stuff than like the actual show, which is fine because that's what most of my references were. And I really like how it came out, and you can see me, if you want to pause and read all of this nonsense, you can see me typing it. But you can't actually see the typing menu because OBS doesn't record my little menus for Metabang or any of my other programs, because if it did, it would also show when I change tabs, and oh boy, that would be just nonsense. And look at that, we're done. I wound up with two versions, like this mock ref, and I put on a really simple background because not all of us can learn how to do Blender backgrounds, Julia, but ultimately I really like how it came out, and I would really like to thank you for watching this video. It was quite a process, and recording this voiceover was also a challenge with how crazy my house is, but I think it came out well. And if you want to see more stuff like this, make sure to leave a like and a comment. I can't promise any sort of schedule for when I post, but if you want to see more of my content, make sure to do a little subscribe and click the bell icon, like as I say, like every single YouTuber on YouTube. Oh, look at that, quoting every single episode of YouTube ever. Yeah, I may try to follow along with more of the Drawfee challenges in the future. They're really enjoyable, and I really love Drawfee. They're super hilarious. But we'll see what happens. Thank you for watching this video, and that'll be all from me. This is Gail signing out. Bye-bye!